Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie, and if you're new here, welcome. Today, I'm gonna be sharing with you my top 10 favorite decor tricks. These tricks and tips are gonna help you elevate your space. I bet you that you already have a lot of these items in your home, so hopefully these tips will help you bring new life to them and rearrange them in new ways so that they refresh your space. And I'll also be sharing with you ways that you can incorporate these items in inexpensive ways and where to find them. I'm super excited about this one, so I want to jump right into it. Before we do that, please hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Make sure that you get updates on every time I post a new video. And if you like videos like this, definitely give this one a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know which tip you like best. So here we go. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so the first tip that I'm going to be sharing with you today is to double up and or group items together. So there are a lot of ways that you can do this in your space. You can do this with vases, you can do this with baskets, you can do this with flower arrangements, candles. But the main idea here is to reinforce repetition. Our brains like repetition. So when you use repetition in your space, you not only make it look visually pleasing, but you actually help to bring more of a relaxing, calming element in the space, and it really helps to tie a room together. So again, you can do this by using vases, maybe two different sizes or two different styles of vases, but just bring them together, maybe one a little bit in front of the other at two different heights. You don't always have to fill vases with florals. So if you feel like it's feeling a little too busy for you, you can put floral stems maybe in the taller one and leave the lower one empty, or you can put more bold stems in the taller one and then maybe more muted or natural stems in the lower one. But doubling up vases is one of my favorite things to do. I use it on our hallway bench behind me. I use it on our console table. I use it on coffee tables. Again, it's a great way to pull in those beautiful vases, especially those vases that are popular right now that are so pretty, to elevate your space. I like to use baskets when doubling things up. So I use these baskets underneath my console table. Again, it just sort of reinforces that design element and makes a bigger statement in a cohesive way. All right, so my second favorite decor trick is to flank items. So by flanking, I mean you're putting the same item one on each side. This is a particularly great idea to do if you have, let's say, a large wall. So in this case, I have a large wall in our living room, and I put these two panels of artwork there, and I still felt like I needed something on either side. So what I did was I took these moss sconces that I have and I flanked the wall art with the sconces. So now it takes up more space on the wall, brings the eye both up and outward, and it brings symmetry to the space. And I think that that's one of the number one reasons why flanking works so well, is because it brings symmetry. Our eyes like symmetry, our brains like symmetry. It kind of gives our eye a place to rest. You can do this again with sconces like I've shown you. You can do this with mirrors. You can do this with large candle holders. And you can do this with lanterns. These are just some examples of ways that you can flank to help improve the look of any room. So next time you see a design piece you like in a store, maybe think about picking up two of those items and think about where you can place them in order to flank something feature, like a fireplace or a piece of art or a mirror in an entryway. My third favorite design tip is to add texture. Adding texture brings warmth and depth to a space by bringing in tactile elements. So what I mean by that is elements that you can touch. Anytime that you can incorporate another sense into your design element is going to instantly make your space look and feel much better. So you can do this by layering pillows, adding blankets, bringing in warm baskets. You can do this by mixing different materials such as wood and brass, or leather and wood, marble and wood. One of my favorite ways to bring in texture is by adding ottomans. These tend to be a less expensive way to make an impact in a space, and again, bring in that tactile element. And benches, of course, can do that same thing for you. Brings in that extra element, another layer, another fabric. Wallpaper is another great way to bring a tactile element to your space. You can do one wall, you can wallpaper an entire room or powder room, but that will instantly bring the texture that you're looking for. Without texture, a space can tend to feel flat. So if you're feeling like that walking around your home, or maybe you've been in a space where it feels like that, usually bringing in a texture or two will help to fix that and warm things up. Rugs are an excellent way to add texture to a space, especially if you have an open concept space. Use rugs to create designated areas, and that will cozy up that open space. They really help define a space. So again, think about your gathering areas. If you have a wide open room that's connected to a kitchen and an eating area and a living room like I have here, adding rugs helps to define a space in particular. So we have this rug underneath our kitchen table, and then we've got our living room area with our couch and a couple of chairs. So it defines each area while still making the big space feel cohesive. Also, bringing in texture doesn't have to feel busy. So if you have a very neutral palette, or maybe you like things very monochromatic, just using one or two simple colors. For example, if you really like lights, stick with different variations of whites, creams, beiges, grays and grays. Keeping to one color tone, but varying that tone slightly is another really great way to bring in texture, especially for a neutral space. I think the main thing here is doing what you're comfortable with. I always like to, once in a while, go a little bit more bold, but at the end of the day, I know that I tend to go more neutral. So I have to listen to myself as well. I live here, right? So I have to feel comfortable in my space. I have to feel good in my space. So think about that when you're bringing in textures. What are you drawn to and what makes you feel good in your space? Okay, so this fourth favorite tip is one of the tips that I think is perhaps the most important tip, or one of the more important tips. I think about this all the time when I'm setting up a new area in my home, when I'm designing a new space, and that is to use the concept of negative space. So negative space lets the eye rest. It keeps us from overcluttering a space, because what happens is if we try to cram too many objects onto, let's say, a coffee table or a console table, a nightstand, an end table, then we can't see anything at all, right? They tend to all blend together. But making sure that we leave negative space, meaning a space where there's not always an accessory or a design element, it's just space, that allows breathing room for all the other items. Negative space lets furniture itself breathe and lets all the other pieces shine without getting lost or feeling cluttered. Keeping negative space in mind when you're styling makes a space feel harmonious, comfortable, and really lets your eye go to those pieces that you want to showcase. It allows those items to be showcased and to really shine. So I think it would be such a shame to spend your money on items that you really like, and when people walk into your home, they can't actually see them. They almost get lost because there might be so many objects crammed onto a console table, let's say, in an entryway. So being selective, curating your space, and then giving your items some breathing room around them really lets all those items stand out and brings your furniture to life as well. Now, I have to also mention you want to be careful of too much negative space, because having next to nothing will make a space feel stark and cold. So balance is key. And if you guys like these ideas, definitely see some of my other videos. I'm going to link some of my favorites in here where I talk more about this and show you how I styled the console table. And you can see where I've left open spaces and where I've allowed other objects their space to shine. So this fifth tip is one of my favorite tips as well, and that is to bring natural elements into your space. This is one of my favorite tips because I love bringing natural elements in. I really love having a calm, peaceful home, and you can do that with natural elements. So some favorite natural elements that will instantly cozy up a space, make it feel warm and inviting, are plants. If you feel like you're in a room walking around feeling like something's missing and you're just not sure what it is, take a look and see if you have a plant in that room, because greenery is one of the best ways to bring in a natural element and really ground a space. Some of my favorite other natural elements are stone, marble, wood, and these don't have to be expensive items. These elements bring in that warmth, make it feel cozy, and bring in that relaxing vibe to your home so that when people walk in, they feel like home. They feel very comfortable in your space. You feel comfortable in your space. And if you're hearing the words like marble and leather and you're thinking, gosh, these have to be big ticket items, they really don't. Go to your local Home Goods if you have one, or order online. Go to your at-home store if you have one. You can often find items like bowls, trivets, trays, candle holders that are all made out of those different elements. So for a very small price, you can still bring those elements into your space and instantly make it look and feel more expensive, more luxurious, without a hefty price tag. You might even have some marble bowls, some wooden bowls in your cabinets, in your kitchen cabinet. So think about things like that that you can use to showcase as well. The main idea is go for those natural elements because again, they will instantly elevate your space and make your home feel cozier, more lived in, and more comfortable. Item number 6 on my top 10 favorite decor tricks is to use risers and trays. Using risers and trays not only brings another element to your space, but it ties things together. So if you have different items, let's say that you use regularly in a kitchen, and maybe it feels a little bit cluttered, or maybe you're feeling like it's a little bit messy in your space, simply adding a tray and then placing those items on the tray brings them together and makes them now feel like they belong there. Risers and trays really create little moments in your space, and they make different items when pulled together make sense now. They make things feel cohesive. And again, they help ground a space. So sometimes I like to use trays on my dining table and I'll place different items in them like dishes and candles, maybe a vase with flowers. Same goes for console tables. Use items that you use on the regular. So things that you appreciate or that you find beautiful, and use a tray to ground them and bring them together in a cohesive way. You would be surprised how much more pulled together a space looks when you add a tray. I do this in bathrooms, on consoles, coffee tables, really everywhere in my home. You can usually find a tray or a riser of some sort. And this is also great to do for seasonal items. So stay tuned for sure in the fall and in the winter, where I tend to do a lot of seasonal decorating, and you will see how well the use of trays makes things feel more grounded, pulled together, and well placed. My 7th favorite tip is to think about contrast. So contrast, kind of like negative space, allows items to stand out. So for example, if I have wallpaper and then I go and purchase lamps that are the same color as the wallpaper, they're gonna blend in. They're gonna compete with each other a little bit and it's not really gonna work together. If you want your items to really stand out, make sure that you use contrasting colors. So one of my favorite things that I really like to do is to mix woods. But if I place one wood on top of my wood floor, it might clash depending on the wood grain. But in this instance, I took a black console table and I placed it on top of the wood floor. And now that contrast between the black wood and the hardwoods make each of them stand out, and they're not competing with each other anymore. You can think about this when you're adding pillows to a couch. If you have a very dark couch, you might want to go with lighter pillows, and vice versa. The same can go for bedding as well. Even in floral arrangements, if you have an arrangement, let's say with a lot of green, maybe think about adding a punch of another color in there, like a deeper brown or a pop of purple. Just something to add that contrasting element so that the pieces can really stand out and be showcased. If I have a light coffee table, I might put a darker vase on top of it. Again, that contrast lets each item be showcased in a way that looks aesthetically pleasing and in a way that doesn't get lost. So number 8 on my list is another one of my favorite tips, and that is to add your own character and personality to your space. So you can do this, of course, by visiting a thrift shop and seeing what items really catch your eye, or maybe using some antiques that you already have, things that were handed down to you. But adding your own personality is what, of course, is going to make your house feel like your house. So what makes you different? If you're stuck on this, I like to think about functionality. So what do you like to do? How do you like to use your space? It might be something as simple as elements that you like to cook with, let's say in your kitchen. So if you have a favorite item or something that you use every day, like a mortar and pestle, bring these things out, use them as design elements. They reflect who you are and how you live your life every day in your space. I like to add my own character in my home by mixing old and new, like this bar cart that was passed down to me by my grandmother. I love having this in our front room where we often gather and have guests here. It brings a warm, cozy, and fun element to a modern space. I actually did a video not too long ago on styling vintage and sentimental items, so I'll link that for you in the description. But think about that when you're styling your own home. Does your home show that you live there? So I know not everybody loves to decorate with photos, but for me personally, I love having photos in my home. I chose to tie them in what I think is an elegant way, with black and white photos and black frames behind me over here. And it's one of the main focal points in our home because that's just it. It's our home. We live here, and I think that it's a great thing to do when you bring in items that make up who you are in your space. The key with this tip is to intersperse those items in meaningful ways, using negative space like we talked about earlier so that they stand out nicely and allow you to shine in your space. So number 9 on my list is to think about height and depth when you're working with items. So for example, I have these 3 candlesticks on my mantle. Now I could have purchased just one of these, but I decided to get 3 of them in varying heights. And you can see how I placed them. If I had lined them up straight in a row, the design would feel flat. Or even if I did them, in order from shortest to the tallest, again, it would feel kind of flat. So I broke them up on the mantelpiece and I placed them not only at varying heights, but I also worked with the depth. So one of them is a little bit more forward than the other. Depth, I find, is one of the elements that's often lacking in a space. So if you're in a space that feels flat, or if you're working with a space in your own home that feels flat, play with depth a little bit. See how things change when you stagger them a little bit, bring one a little bit forward, another one a little bit backward, and also when you vary heights. That adds interest and also that repetitiveness that our eyes really like. So think about this again when you're adding candle holders, when you're adding vases, plants in planters. Pay attention and work with both the height and the depth. Okay, and number 10 is to work with varied types of artwork. When it comes to artwork, we often think about canvases and framed pictures or paintings, yes, but also think about other elements that you can bring in as art. For example, maybe it's a beautiful wood piece that you can bring in as art. I fell in love with this wood piece that I purchased from Home Goods. I bought it when I lived in my old house and I didn't even have a place for it, but I just fell in love with it. So I knew I had to get it. And I'm happy that I did because we wound up moving and now I found the perfect space for it. I could have put a picture here, but I think that it's an unexpected way to bring many different things that we talked about. It brings texture, it brings warmth, it brings contrast. And yes, another art element into the space. You can use mirrors as a type of artwork. I love the mirror in our entryway. It has sort of a smoky glass kind of look to it, and it's got 3 panels. So it's not just a plain mirror, it functions as a mirror, but it also has an artistic element to it that brings another design element to the space. You can use photos, again, like my earlier example. I used photos as artwork for one of the main walls in our living area. So again, you've got canvases, you have wood pieces, you have photos, you can even put baskets on your wall and have baskets help act as pieces of artwork. But thinking outside the box in terms of art helps to bring more interest to your space. And again, is one of the easiest ways to make your space feel more curated and more luxurious. All right, guys, so those are my top 10 tips. Tell me in the comments which one was your favorite and which ones you can do right now in your home with items that you already have. If you like videos like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.